Hola, buena gente. My name is Rachel Jennings. My pronouns are she and her, and I am a board member of the Esperanza Peace and Justice Center. I want to thank each of you for joining us this evening for the fourth annual Tus Niños También Trans Kids Back to School Part 2. I would like to begin by letting you know how much we at the Esperanza Center are thinking about all of you, especially those of you in the trans community. These are difficult times during the pandemic. Some of you may be essential workers who are working in dangerous conditions. Some of you may be feeling isolated because you've had to stay at home. Some of you may have lost your jobs and be feeling financial stress. I want to let you know that the Esperanza Center is doing all it can to continue our programming for you, whether it's something like tonight's event, Trans Kids Back to School, or Noche Azul nights with Azul's live performances. And so please, if you can, please continue your support of the Esperanza Center. We're also trying to just be supportive to members of the community during this time. So please continue your support. Tonight, I am here with the Executive Director of TENS, Transgender Education Network of Texas, Emmett Schelling, who has also been a part of this annual Trans Kids Back to School since the community started organizing the event in 2016.
Thanks so much, Rachel. As Rachel said, my name's Emmett. My pronouns are he, him, his. And I'm so happy to be able to be with y'all tonight, I guess in some form. I'm sad that obviously Corona is going to impact the ability for us to have another annual Trans Kids Back to School like we've traditionally had it. Together in the same setting. But we know that this information is just as important now than it has always been. So the purpose of Trans Kids Back to School was to facilitate conversation between parents, their children, and teachers on how to best include, respect, and protect trans youth in schools. Obviously, with the way schools are, we don't know what the future lies ahead in terms of how will the educational system be impacted. But the same pillars of the programming that we did in person are just as important about supporting kids, about trans kids really needing a unique form of support sometimes in an educational setting, regardless of what that looks like. And so we hope that this is beneficial and helpful for folks, even in a very unique situation. We're really grateful to Esperanza at TEND, but also as not just as an organization, but individually for me. This is one of my favorite events. I consider Esperanza home. They really did and still do provide that sort of sense of community that you can just palpably feel when you're in that space. And Esperanza's been around and has been supporting the trans community for over 20 years, which is a lot longer than I think a lot of organizations can say. And so that just long-term support and dedication to the well-being of trans folks all over Texas is so greatly appreciated. So to wrap this, to give you an idea at home, every year at Esperanza, we kind of gather to organize alongside with TENT, the organization I lead, the ACLU of Texas, and many other local community organizations that come together for this really special event. I hope that you are able to enjoy the video, and hopefully we'll be able to see you again soon in person, but we'll see you again at the closing. Thank you so much.
So now we're going to invite a panel to come up, a panel of mostly parents and another student and a parent and her son, and hopefully they will talk about the summer experience they got to have traveling as themselves, living with kids of their gender.
My name is Adam Harris. I go to East Central High School, and I guess something about myself. I'm a trans man, and I've been out for about almost 2 years, and it's been very rough, but also really, really great. I've had a lot of support, including my mom and my aunt in the audience, and I'm just lucky to have them.
Christina? Cindy?
Hello. Oh, my name's Christina, and I'm Adam's mother. And when Adam came out to us, it was great. I mean, we're happy. We didn't really have a whole lot of problems. He's a really good boy.
Hi, my name's Kimberly Anderson. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I have 3 children. I have 2 boys and a girl. And I will disclose up here tonight that I'm here because one of them is transgender, but typically I just say that I have 3 kids. So. Can you hear me?
I just don't want to bend over to talk in the microphone, but my name is Ginger Chun, and from my pronouns are she, her, hers. I have 2 children, a boy and a girl. I guess they probably don't want to be called boys and girls because they're 19 and 16, but my 19-year-old daughter is transgender. She came out about 3 years ago in high school here in San Antonio, and it's been a journey. Her journey, not my journey. I always have to tell myself that. Just along for the support.
So, let me ask you 3 parents. How did your children come out to you? And how have you supported them? And how have you supported them with the schools? So, we'll start with Ginger.
So my daughter was a little creative and not very clear when she came out to me the first time. And this was her freshman year of high school, and she came to me one day when we were standing in the kitchen and said, "Mom, next time I go to a dance, I want to wear a dress." And anybody who knows my child, she's very provocative, and she likes to make political statements, and she's just very, I don't know how to exactly describe it, but just into being different. She's got a strong personality. And so I was like, sure, if you want to wear a dress, that's fine, but just make sure there isn't some kid that really needs to wear a dress. So I totally missed the boat. I thought she was just trying to support some friends or something, but really she was trying to tell me something about her, which I totally missed. And so it took her almost a year to come out again and say, "Hey Mom, I'm trans." So we had her whole freshman year where she had this thing inside her that she didn't tell me, and or tell either of us, my husband or myself. And so then she did finally come and specifically say, "Hey Mom, I'm trans." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I didn't know what to say because I didn't really know anything about it. That was right about when Caitlyn Jenner was coming out. And so that was my whole exposure to transgender, was Caitlyn Jenner, right? Now I know so much. And so I was just like, oh, okay, and was there anything else you wanted to tell me? And she was like, not at the time. And my husband, of course, was out of town, because that's when your kids tell you big things. And so I called him and I said, hey, our child's name came to me and told me this thing, and I shared that with him, and he was like, really? Okay. And so that kind of started our journey, and it took us obviously we found a therapist because San Antonio's got some great therapists. And we just started learning and educating ourselves. We went to Fiesta Youth, I went to PFLAG. I just started doing different things to learn. And luckily, we had an amazing guidance counselor at our high school. And when we came to the guidance counselor and said, hey, our child is transgender and she wants to come out at school, this guidance counselor was amazing. And I was just talking to somebody earlier today about how it's really very interesting, your experiences from talking to other parents, your experiences about coming out at school. And we are in the Northeast School District, and that school district is not known for being supportive, but we were just so lucky because we found the right person. And so our experience in school was that this guidance counselor advocated for us, and she got my child's teachers together, and we sat down with them before the school year started and talked about what was going to happen. And it really ended up being a very amazing experience. And the interesting thing is that Kimberly's daughter went to high school with my daughter, and she did not even realize until graduation that my daughter had transitioned and was this, going by a different name and any of that. She was like, oh my gosh. And so I feel that that's a testament to the school, that it wasn't a big deal, and that my child was able to transition and graduate and have a really decent high school experience with making it no big deal. But it was luck, and I'm sure Kimberly's going to share a slightly different story.
Yeah, so we're going to segue to Kimberly and let Kimberly answer the same questions with perhaps a little bit different perspective.
Yes. My child, who is transgender, identifies on the binary, and he identifies as a trans man. And a year, in fact, it's not even been a whole year. It's been since August 27th is when I found out. A year ago, August 26th, we dropped our first child, the first child that we dropped off at school. And was the closest sibling that my child had at the time. And they were so close, and I was actually very concerned, had seen my child withdraw a lot during the summer. The doctors and I had some very, very real concerns about his mental health and how he was going to move forward without his sister there. And so the night before school started, I expressed to him that we either needed to start taking the prescription that the doctor had given us for depression, or that we needed to figure out what was at the source of his depression and start speaking to somebody about it. And the next day was the first day of school. And he texted me about 2 minutes after I dropped him off. And he said, "Mom, I left a note in your car. Will you read it?" And I said, "As soon as I get home, I will read it," because I was still driving at the time. And I read it, and I was just shocked, which is silly looking back, because in school shopping, we were shopping for binders, and we shopped in the men's department. And so all of the things and all of the clues that were right in front of my face, I didn't have the language to process as what those were meaning at that time. Because it hadn't been normalized enough in my circles for me to understand what that meant. So looking back, I kind of feel silly, but I read that note, and in that note, it was incredible, his articulation of what he said. "Mom, I am a transgender boy, and it is not a mental illness. I identify as a boy because that's the way I was born. I know that Dad might have a hard time with this, and I know you still love me because you told me. But I still kind of want to go to church because sometimes I feel really comfortable there. I hope that you guys still love me." And he said a few other things that had let me know that he had researched this quite a bit, that he had explained what transgender was. So when I talked to my husband, we were both very much on the same page of this is our kid, we love him, we're gonna do everything we can to support and affirm him and figure out the next steps, because there is nothing in the parenting books about how to go about this. So what do I do? And thankfully my husband's involved in social services and had some access to some resources, and so we started almost immediately attending the SD Youth and PFLAG and Trans Allies meetings. And I began, my coping skill is to learn everything I can about the subject and to become a subject matter expert. So that's what I proceeded to do. And I just talked to Lauren recently about, we had decided at the time that we were going to, allow him to transition to a certain point, that you were very sure that, he needed to wait a little while, which led to, it shows you my ignorance of the journey that we were about to embark on as a family. But I had found out that he already had his teachers at school calling him Anderson for like 6 months. So I was like, so are you out at school or are you not out at school? He's like, well, my teachers call me Anderson and I don't know, whatever that means, but just tell everybody. I said, wait, you want me to just tell everybody? He's like, yeah, just tell everybody, get it all over with so I don't have to do it ever again. I was like, well, that's not really how this works. But I hear what you're saying and we'll start to go forward with this. So we met with a really great therapist who was able to kind of help put all of our thoughts together and get us a great letter that I could take to school and have it kind of laid out what our expectations of the transition would go and how they would go. And it was the first time that he was going to be coming out, because he had won an award where his name would be called, his chosen name would be called. And so it was very important for me to get the school on board with it that day, because it was like, all these kids are going to hear his chosen name for the first time, so really hope this works out. The front desk people were amazing and really worked with me, and the administration was cautious, to say the best term, very cautious. His teachers I had already been discussing with him. They already knew the situation and were very comfortable with calling him Anderson, and whether he decided to go by Nathan in his time or not. But we came to the point where right before school was ending, we knew that we were going to get his name and gender marker changed this summer, which we did get his name and gender marker changed this summer. So thank you. That is great news. And so I talked to the administration about what the process would be for the next year, because being his grade level, he still has a requirement for PE. And I said, I want to make sure that my son is able to be in the correct PE class and locker room. And the administrator said, well, that might not look like what you think it's going to look like. I was like, I'm sorry. You're going to force my son to go to the girls' locker room? She said, no. He can use the single-use restroom outside of the locker rooms, which he'll have to wait for a coach to open up at the start of every PE class. And I was like, yeah, because that coach is going to be there on time, right? That's not going to happen. I said, and what's my other option? She said, well, or he could change in the nurse's office. Okay, he's going to change in the nurse's office? Yes, in their single-use restroom. Where is he going to leave his clothes? In the nurse's office. And then walk all the way to the gym in his PE clothes? Yes, that's the other option. Okay, so we have him standing outside with all the other kids entering the locker room, waiting for a coach to open it up for him to go by himself into one place. Or we have him being humiliated by walking across the entire school in his PE uniform every day. Those are great options. She said, well, in speaking with our attorney, that's what they wanted me to present to you. And I said, thank you. I will speak with my attorney and I will get back to you on what we will present to you. And then I did the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. And I asked my son what he wanted, because it's his journey, not mine. And I knew that if I fought this fighting the giant of the school district that we're in, it's not going to be a quiet fight. And there would be every chance that his name would be leaked. And I couldn't, and I asked him how he felt about that. And he said, I don't want that. I just want to just be. I'm fine with going into the nurse's office because I don't want to be around the other boys because they'll kick. Well, he didn't say a nice word, but he was really afraid for his safety. So it took a long time for me to process that. And I really worked at finding alternative options for him to take PE, and that's not been an option. And so after much thought and discussion amongst our family, I'm respecting his wishes and allowing him to change in the nurse's office for now, until he comes to a different place, and then I will fight for him as much as he wants to. But I think that this is the norm. He doesn't want to rock the boat. He doesn't want to be noticed. He wants to just be like every other kid. And I can't give that to him without fighting and making him not like every other kid. So I wish that I could, but we're just gonna have to wait until his voice gets a little bigger, and hopefully he lets me know when that happens. So,
Are you comfortable sharing what school district?
we're in the Northeast School District.
So I don't think anybody was surprised. So, Christina?
So when Adam came out to us, it was like the end of his freshman year, and he said his name, and he let us know that that's what he wanted to be called, and we said okay, and that was fine. And when eventually, I got tired of using his dead name, like around family members and stuff, so I did ask him if it was okay if I just started using his name, Adam, on Facebook, and he did say yes. So I just one day switched it. I threw it out there and said, oh, Adam, he wants some work, so we were proud of him. I was like, okay. Well, only a few people private messaged me and said, so it's Adam now? And I said, yes. And that's all I got. And then everybody was fine. Everybody at my job was so excited. They're like, oh my God, you have a son? And I was like, yes, I have 3 sons. Thank you. So they were pretty cool. Some of the older ladies I didn't think were gonna be okay with it, but I guess because they've known me for so long, they just kind of figured, oh well, this is a Christina thing, so it's fine. So everybody was really happy for Adam. Everyone's super supportive of him. Everybody loves him. And when it came to school, he did pretty much almost everything on his own. He talked to the teachers, he talked to his counselor. In fact, I had a teacher and a counselor call me and apologize for not seeing it, before he went to them, and it was okay. Everybody's been pretty cool, haven't had too many problems. When Adam did come out, I didn't know any information. He had done all his research, I had nothing. So I started to look through things online, and I found the Pride Center. Through the Pride Center, I found Trans Allies, which is super wonderful, super loving and wonderful, supportive people. And I am so happy to have that because I had no idea what to do or where to go. And through them, we found doctors and just attorneys, anything we needed, psychiatrists. They have all the information we were looking for. And it just made this so much easier. We were able to get Adam's statement gender marker changed, and when he started testosterone, it was wonderful. We found a wonderful doctor, and we even celebrated his day with a cake and everything. So it's just we've been really lucky, very, very fortunate that we have all the support that we have from both sides of our family. So I'll just let him.
What school district?
East Central.
So, Adam, let me ask you, how have you addressed school, and how has the experience been for you? And have you been anywhere lately?
Well, first I'll answer the last question. Yes, I have been somewhere. I went to Sydney, Australia to sing in the Opera House with an international choir. And that experience was like really nice. I actually roomed with other guys, and they were okay with me. And like it's kind of sad to say it, but it was the one, like that whole week there felt like the first time where I had no fear whatsoever of being me, and they just accepted me. They didn't think of me as like a trans man or like or this and that. No, they just saw me as me, and that felt really great. But at the end of that trip, I think it was the second to last day or the last day, I had put out a story saying, like, it's a shame that this is gonna end, because yes, I have all the support at home, but school, I have support, but there are kids who aren't so supportive. Like, what happened the month before we got out of school this year, there's this incident where we were at band rehearsal, and this one kid had said like the wrong pronoun to me, and I just politely corrected them and said like, oh, it's he, and then they followed up with saying, no, you're not, and then instead of just shutting it down and just being like, okay, whatever, like I always do, it tipped me off because I already didn't like this kid, because this kid was extremely rude to the teachers and to other students. And so I instead of being like how I usually was and calm and collective, I decided, hey, I'm gonna try and explain it to him. Which did not go well because he did not accept the information I gave to him. I even went and explained the science behind it, but he said this statement, which angers me to this day. He said, if we pull our pants down right now, will we have the same genitalia? No. Then you're not a man. And I remember just being like, are you kidding me? I tried explaining this to you, and then I told my band director, and he told the kid the next day, like, hey, you shouldn't say and all this stuff, but then I was hoping, oh, maybe that got something through him. No, like around Battle of Flowers when we were doing practice for no, it wasn't even practice. It was the day of the night parades. We were going home on the bus, and him and his friend kept repeatedly using the wrong name, the wrong pronouns on purpose to annoy me, and I wouldn't respond to them or anything, not even look at them, but then sometimes they would talk behind my back and be like, oh yeah, blank, yeah, she, and I'm just like, are you kidding me? And so then I told the band director again, and I thought, okay, so I told the band director, and the band director told me to write a statement and everything, and that something would happen, so I gave the statement to the band director looked over the other one, and then they sent it to the administration. Nothing happened. The kids went unpunished. They didn't even get a talk from the band directors, and that infuriated me. It made me so upset that nothing was done about it. And part of me just thinks it's because it's the end of the year and they don't want to deal with it, or they don't know how to, or many things. But either way, the fact of the matter is they didn't do anything about it, and that's what frustrated me. But so far, that's the only bad experience I've had. Every other experience in school, like being trans, has been great. My choir director, she was real supportive. She even let me wear like a tux and actually be in the men's choir and sing tenor with all the other guys. And I went to UIL singing tenor. And I actually, because a lot of the kids failed. I was the only tenor one that could sing like the really high note, so I got to sing that high note, and because my voice is so loud, you can actually hear it echo throughout the Performing Arts Center, and that felt great, being on stage with other guys and singing with them, and not like, it just felt so great and amazing. And then not only choir was like I welcome, but in theater, my theater director actually let me change with the other guys, because the other guys were pretty cool about it. They were like, oh, whatever, it's fine. And he was just like, yeah, you can go in there. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, it's fine. They're cool. And I'm like, okay. And I had no fear whatsoever, because I knew most of those kids. I felt really comfortable, and it was just awesome. And then in my other classes, like with my teachers, I remember the first day of school, I said, like, oh, it's Adam, because my name had not been legally changed yet. And the teachers had been supportive, and they called me by my name and the right pronouns. And actually, my Algebra 2 teacher, she, one time she had accidentally used the wrong pronoun. She's like, oh, I'm so sorry, my mistake. I meant he. And like, it was just nice seeing like a teacher actually correct themselves and like try and make an effort, because with students I haven't really gotten that except for maybe like my friends. And
It sounds like Northside might have some competition here in town. Like East Central has really done a good job. So, thank you very much, Adam. Hey, one last quick question for the moms. What are your hopes for schools? Especially in the coming year. We'll start with you, Christina.
For me, I just hope that schools get educated more than anything, because it's super frustrating having to go in as a parent and educate everybody. I realize that this is pretty much new for most schools, but I feel like even when I've had a few roadblocks when I do present them with information, and they don't seem to want to change all the time. So I would like to see more change, more acceptance, and just more education in the schools.
Kimberly?
I want my son to go to the bathroom and to not have to do PE.
I want schools to remember that they're there to support kids and not to like instill their personal biases on kids, and actually remember that they're there for the kids.
Okay, can I amend that? I also want teachers to use their pronouns. So if I try to do this wherever I go, but my biggest thing is that if I can leave you with one thing tonight, if you could, in your signature line of your email, change your pronouns and or add your pronouns to your signature line. So right under your name, you would put pronouns dash whichever pronouns you identify with. And it's really easy to do, and it's really important for everyone to do it, especially as cisgender people, because we're the people who are going to make it normal for everybody to use their pronouns. So please do that for me tonight.
So this individual just said, as a non-custodial parent, as a custodial parent of gender non-conforming, non-binary, transgender children, those are all terms we use to describe a family. I'm not going to call them a group, but a family of identities of people whose gender is somehow different than the very binary gender they were identified with at birth.
How can I speak to their biological other parent so that they can be more supportive in their journey?
I think a lot of it depends on your relationship, obviously, with that other parent. If you are successful co-parents, I think face-to-face, sit down, and you might ask your child, would you like to be present? Would you like to explain this to your mom or dad with me? Or would you like to write a letter? Some kids feel more comfortable that way, or sending an email or something. But that should maybe be the first conversation, because just because your child came out to you, they might not be ready to come out to their dad or their mom or their grandmother, or something like that. So that's a conversation you should have first. And I'm always a big proponent of face-to-face is always best, because I feel telephone things can get misconstrued. But definitely check with your child first before you make any steps in that direction.
So I want to introduce you to someone else really quickly. His name is Adam Zepsega. And Adam, come up here. Adam is an LPC, and he sees a large number of the trans kids here, especially young ones, here in the city of San Antonio. And right before we started this evening, he was talking to me about that specifically. So I've invited him up here to take a quick swing at that, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, I was talking to Lauren earlier about some of the most challenging work for me as a therapist is working with families where parents are divorced, right? Because if we have a child's parent who is affirming, and we have a child's parent who is unaffirming, especially when the divorce decree indicates that there's decisions that are being made by both parents, right? So it's not just one parent that can make decisions. That's really difficult, right? And I think oftentimes a therapeutic setting is going to be helpful in those situations, because it can allow for the therapist to hold space for both parents, right? And to talk about, for example, with the unaffirming parent, to find out what those fears are, right? What are those challenges, and allow for the processing of feelings of grief, feelings of fear, and then providing resources, right, to that parent. And hopefully they're also wanting to engage in counseling services as well, right? Always taking the lead of the child, right, and talking to them about what this could look like. So I think that those are some important pieces, and I think a therapeutic environment could be essential in helping parents learn more about their child's experience and how they can be supportive and affirming of their experience.
Do any of the parents have a comment?
Me and our Adam's dad were divorced, and when Adam came out, I asked him, I said, do you want to tell your dad, or do you want me to do it? He wanted me to do it. I made a phone call. I wasn't sure how he was gonna go. He was okay. He asked me why Adam didn't tell him, and I told him he wasn't ready. But I feel like he's been okay. He's maybe not as supportive as everybody else, but he does love his son, and he is there for him. And I feel like, well, at least for us, the phone call was the way to go, because I feel like if I would have did it face-to-face, there might have been confrontation. So I feel like it was easier. He was in his own home. He could sit down, and I approached it. I just told him, I have something to tell you. It's about our son, Adam. And he said, Adam, and I said, Adam's dead name. And he said, oh, okay. And when I explained everything, he was okay. So I really feel like it just depends on the relationship you have with your ex or whatever they might be to you. For us, we're okay. We're not best friends, but we're okay. So that's what worked for us.
The one thing I would like to add is that if you have a divorce decree, to make sure you know what's in that divorce decree. You don't want to put yourself in any kind of legal risk with that other person. If you don't have a good relationship, it's a very big risk, because you don't know how they're going to react or what they might try to do. So just make sure you know what's in that document, because that is a legally binding document for you.
One of the other things that I wanted to mention was that, so sometimes kiddos are comfortable with not coming out to an unaffirming parent. And oftentimes, when somebody is looking to medically transition or legally transition in terms of official documentation with their name and gender marker, is where we see there to be challenges in my work, with youth and with adolescents. So sometimes kiddos won't reveal their assertive gender identity to their unaffirming parent until a situation occurs where maybe they're wanting to pursue gender affirming hormone therapy or legal native gender marker change.
She wants to know how we can help reassure the kids that they are accepted and affirmed. I think that goes to what we need to do is change our language. All of us need to change our language. That speaks to right into the pronouns that I was talking about. When I'm using my pronouns in everyday language and using neutral language as much as possible, I'm still learning how to really make that a part of my language as being neutral, so that that all people that identify anywhere on the spectrum of gender identity feel comfortable around me. And the more we change that language, and the less we use binary references, the more they're going to understand. And I think it's also really important that we read books to them from when they're little about inclusiveness and diversity and in all things, in not just gender, but in sexuality and in ethnicity and all of that, because we all make up this world, and in doing the inclusivity of all of the diversity that there is about the human experience, I think it's really important that we incorporate that into our language in our homes. And in doing that, also asking to incorporate it into our workplaces if we have a say in that, using forms that are neutral to gender and that support and affirm differences in gender identity.
Kind of to piggyback off of what you said earlier, I think it's just really important that cisgender people kind of get on board with this, that we might not have children that are trans or nieces or nephews, grandkids, but I mean, even start in our own homes that, you know, my daughter's right there, she just turned 3 and she is going into the stage of like, well, boys do this and he can't be in here. And it's like, no, people can be wherever people are people, you know, they can go wherever they want to. I want to marry a girl when I grow up. That's great. I hope she treats you right. You know, and it shouldn't be that, you know, oh, well, my son wants to do ballet, and my father said, well, no, you don't want to do that. That's girl stuff. And I'm like, Dad, we don't say that in our house. You know, and so starting those kind of conversations in the grocery store, at your home, it spreads, you know, little ripples in a pond type thing.
Transgender Education Network of Texas has a training called TransSafe. And so I'm very proud to say that one of the signs Dr. Rankin has in her office is a TransSafe sign that says that she is an ally to train to be a transgender ally by the Transgender Education Network of Texas. But I want to tell all the school districts in here that we would love to do that. A principal recently in the school that we trained stopped me halfway through and said, so I'm changing all of our name tags. I'm adding pronouns. And we're going to have conversations at every staff meeting about gendered activities in the classrooms. So schools can do this. Schools can do it. This week we are traveling to the Valley, and we will be training one of the larger school districts in the Valley. We'll be training 150 teachers, administrators, and staff from a large school district. So it can be done. It's just because people choose not to. I want to thank all of you for coming. And if you have pressing questions, I can't speak for everyone, but my experience has been that we all stay around for at least a few minutes. If you want to speak to any of us one-on-one, we'll answer any questions you have. Thank you very much.
thank you all for tuning in for the 4th annual Trans Kids Back to School Part 2 this evening. We're so grateful for your continued support. I just want to thank you all so much for tuning in. Definitely encourage folks to share it out. I think it's interesting within our own networks. We really never know who benefits from this kind of information and who is like moving through that journey, especially initially when trans kids are coming out and having these conversations with their parents. And one of the things that parents often feel very isolated and alone, and like, who do I talk to? Who do I turn to? So I do encourage folks to share that out. You really don't know who it's going to help. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Rachel so she can close us out.
Thank you, Emmett, and thank all of you for supporting the important work of the Esperanza Center by turning in this evening. If you would like to become a monthly donor to support Esperanza's cultural programming and advocacy work, please visit the esperanzacenter.org to donate. Or you can also donate through Venmo. Just search the Esperanza Center, or mail in your donations to our office at 922 San Pedro Avenue. Again, it's a difficult time during this pandemic, but again, the Esperanza Center is doing all we can to be supportive of all of our working class and marginalized communities. So please consider this and consider becoming a monthly donor. Thank you.
If you have any questions, please email the Esperanza Peace and Justice Center at esperanza@esperanzacenter.org, or call them at 210-228-0201 and leave a message. Thank you again for tuning in, for all of your support. I encourage the community to support Esperanza and the continued work and support that they give back to San Antonio in so many ways. Thank you all. Have a safe night. Good evening.